I'm going to show you how to overhaul the hub on a rear wheel. This hub has like a ton of play in it there. The axle moves back and forth. So it could be that the bearings in there are just really worn out. It could be just need to be adjusted, but I'm just going to overhaul the thing while I'm at it. I want to start off by removing the skewer. Don't lose the spring. And I usually like to just put these together, put these off to the side so I do not lose the springs. Just like that. Next, you're going to want to remove the freewheel. And so I have a freewheel remover tool. So depending on the type of freewheel you have is the type of tool you're going to need. So just slide that on. And I have a crescent wrench here. And then what I'm going to do is turn this counterclockwise. And if it's been on there for a while, it could be extremely tight. And this one is. So, let's slide my cheater bar on here and hopefully get this thing to move here. Got it. Okay, once you get it broken loose, then it's generally pretty easy. Just go ahead and just turn the tool counterclockwise till the freewheel comes off, like that. Before taking everything apart, you want to go ahead and take note of how far the axle extends past this lock nut here. You see, it looks like 3/20ths of an inch on that side, and about 2/10ths of an inch on this side. Actually, maybe just a hair more than 2/10ths of an inch on this side. This side seems to have more axle sticking out than the other side. You can see how much play there is in this. There shouldn't be that much play in there. Now, it doesn't matter which side you start on, but you do want to keep track of the order of the parts that they come on, or, that are on the axle here. On the rear wheel especially, the spacers are not symmetrical on each side. You're going to have longer spacers on one side, shorter spacers on the other. On the front wheel, they're generally symmetrical, but on the back wheel, you need to pay a lot more attention to the order of the parts. So what I'm going to use is a cone wrench down here on the cone. I have a 15mm that fits there, and I can already tell this cone is loose down there. That's probably part of the problem. So that's not going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and hold the other lock nut on the other side with a crescent wrench down here, and then loosen this lock nut up here. And it actually looks like it's already partly loose here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this guy. Okay, I have a lock nut, I have a spacer, and here's the cone. So I'll go ahead and remove the cone here. There, and there's all the ball bearings. And I want to keep track of how many ball bearings are on each side. So I'm going to just pull these out with a magnet here. Just get them out there. Like that. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ball bearings on this side. So there's likely 9 ball bearings on the other side as well. So go ahead and put those aside. And then I can go ahead, lift this up, pull the axle out, flip the wheel over, be careful not to lose any ball bearings. A couple ball bearings have already fallen out down there. So there's 2 down there, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 ball bearings on this side as well. That's actually pretty common on rear wheels. Okay, and this is the order of the parts. So there was the lock nut, the spacer, then the cone, and here's the axle. And this was on the drive side. So the longer spacer went on the drive side, so we can keep track of that. And now I need to pull this side apart. So I can go ahead and put a cone wrench on the cone there and loosen this lock nut here. And looks like the 2 lock nuts are identical. There's the spacer. So the shorter spacer goes on the non-drive side, and I can go ahead and pull the cone off here. And then the axle itself may not be completely symmetrical either. So there looks like there's like complete threading here. No threading. There's a little bit of threading here, and then there's more threading over on this side. So this little bit of threading here, this was on the non-drive side. So I want to remember that when I put it back together. I have a jar of paint thinner right here that I'm going to use. I can dump all the parts in, and that'll help clean all the old grease and dirt off the parts. And the axle I can kind of stir around in there. And just kind of wipe that off as best I can. Okay, I pulled all the parts out of the paint thinner and then just wiped them off, and now they're all nice and clean here. I still want to clean out the races in the wheel. So just take a rag with some paint thinner on there, and I can just wipe these out. And just wipe out all the old dirty grease out of there, like that. Get them all nice and clean. Flip the wheel over to the other side. Get this side as well. And you want to try to dry out all the paint thinner in there, as that won't be good for the grease when we repack the races. Now check the races for any damage, any little dinks in there, any cracks. That one looks good. And that one looks good. And then you also want to check the races on the cones here and look for any major damage on those. And those look good. Now we'll get ready to put this thing back together here. These are the bearings I pulled out of the wheel, and so I've got a gauge here from Park Tool, and it's got like little holes in here for different sizes of bearings. So I just take the bearing and try to drop it into one of the holes, and it doesn't go through the hole for the 7/32 inch bearing, and so it goes nice and cleanly through the 1/4 inch hole there. So these are 1/4 inch bearings. And I have a bag full of 1/4 inch bearings right here. Or you can just go to your local bike shop and buy, go ahead and get 9 for each side. Or you can always, get like 1 or 2 extra just in case you lose one. I want to pack the race with grease. I got my little grease gun here. And I'll just go ahead and run some grease around the race here. I'm using marine grease here. Now I just want to take one bearing at a time and drop it in the race, and the grease will hold it in place. And there's my 9 bearings. I got a nice little circle around in there. And just make sure they're pressed down into the grease like that. And then they'll stay there. So go ahead and flip the wheel over. Put grease down in the race. And then insert the bearings down into the grease again. And there I have 9 bearings down into the grease. Now I'm ready to start putting the axle back together again. I have the parts laid out here again. So I have the axle here. Here's a little bit of threaded part that was on the non-drive side. I have the long spacer that was on the drive side. So what I'm going to do is take the cone and screw that down onto the axle to begin with. Just screw it way the heck down there. Take the spacer and then take the lock nut, and we're going to go ahead and screw this on. And I want about 2/10 of an inch of axle going out past the lock nut there. So I measure that like that. That looks about right. Then what I can do is take the cone and then tighten that back out into the lock nut. Like that. Then using my cone wrench, like that, and my crescent wrench, I'll go ahead and tighten that. So that's nice and solid there. Now I have the wheel here, and this is the drive side because there's where the freewheel screwed on. So I'll go ahead and pass the axle down through there, and then I'm going to go ahead and flip this over. Like this. Okay, now I just go ahead and screw the cone onto this side. Screw it down. Screw it down till it's finger tight against the bearings down there. Slide the spacer on. Then go ahead and slide the lock nut on here. Okay, and this is where it gets tricky because you want the cone loose enough that the wheel will spin with no binding, but tight enough that you're not going to get play in the hub there. So I've got this tightened finger tight against the bearings. So what I'm going to do is hold the cone, then hold the lock nut, kind of tighten the lock nut down, and then just kind of tighten these, and then we'll feel how they go. And you want them to turn smoothly, no binding, but you don't really want any play in the hub there. And this actually feels pretty good. So what I'm going to do is tighten this the rest of the way, and then I'll double check it again. So tighten it nice and tight, and then double check it again. You want it to turn nice and smoothly, and you don't want play in the hub there. So go ahead and flip the wheel back over. Now I'm ready to put the freewheel back on, so I just go ahead and slide this on and turn it on like that. And I can put the tool back on there, and just tighten it on a little bit. I don't need to tighten it on super hard because riding it will go ahead and tighten it on. Now I just put the skewer back on, and I'm done. And that is how you overhaul the hub on a rear wheel. Hope that helps.